virtual meeting, I think it'd be really a good idea to do a roll call, because I'm not quite sure that we know, or the record knows exactly who's on the meeting, which council members are present and absent.
Okay. Julia, you want to, is Julia present to do a roll call?
She may be listening only. I can do that. Mayor
Okay.
Henderson,
Here.
Vice Mayor Williams,
Here.
Councilmember Allen,
Here.
Councilmember Short,
Here.
Councilmember Hostetter.
I'm here. Are we taking attendance or are we voting on the motion at this point?
Well, I
Taking
think
attendance.
it's both. So, well, I'll relate to Jason that we have all 5 present and all 5 have indicated approval of the agenda.
Right, yeah, I was trying to do a 2-for-1 right there, Mr. Hamp, you're exactly right.
All right, so let's move on to item number 3. Item number 3 is to consider the consent agenda. Is there any motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion again.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. The next matter is matters from the mayor. This is something I like. I've got about 3 things I want to go over today about some great things going on in our city. First is the new gates at the Presbyterian Cemetery. On behalf of the Waynesboro City Council and our community, I would like to thank Dale Morris of the Virginia Institute of Blacksmithing for fabricating the new ornamental gates at the old cemetery. There's a picture on our screen. These are given to us by Dale Morris. The Institute of Blacksmithing is located in Waynesboro in the mill at South River Complex. We extend our appreciation to the Historical Commission and the Department of Parks and Recreation for their support in this project also. Thank you, Mr. Morris, and the Historical Commission and Parks and Recreation. And Mr. Shaw, thank you for bringing that picture up.
Yeah.
Another great thing in our community is to give a little praise to one of our police officers, Officer Rebecca Shuey, for outstanding service. Again, on behalf of the Waynesboro City Council, I want to recognize Waynesboro Police Department Officer Rebecca Shuey for exemplary life-saving effort on Wednesday, December the 2nd. On the evening of December the 2nd, Waynesboro Emergency Operations Center received a 911 call about an individual who was standing on the bridge over Interstate 64 on Rosser Avenue. It was reported to the dispatch center that the individual was about to leap off the overpass. Officer Shuey was dispatched and responded to the call. On arrival, she located the distraught individual over the rail, appearing to be on the verge of jumping onto the interstate traffic. Using exemplary crisis intervention and de-escalation skills, Officer Shuey safely and successfully convinced the individual to come back over the rail and speak with her. Once the individual was back on safe grounds, Officer Shuey was able to help the individual and get the appropriate resources for further assessment. This exemplary and compassionate work displayed by Officer Shuey for this citizen is what Waynesboro's Police Department prides itself on. Thank you for Police Department, and thank you, Officer Shuey, for your dedicated service. And I got one more thing, folks, and then I'll pass it off to council members. It's with thankfulness and sadness that we talk about a retirement of one of our city employees, Vicki Purvis. Vicki Purvis began her employment with the city of Waynesboro in the fall of 1982 as an account clerk for the Department of Social Services. Soon after, she moved to the city auditor's office, which is now the city finance department. Through the years, she has moved forward with and accepted more responsibilities with the finance department, ranging from accounts payable to revenue recording. Vicki has assisted with benefits management, the Virginia Retirement System Administration, in support of her fellow employees. In her various positions, she has been regarded as a kind, patient, diligent, trustworthy, and knowledgeable person. She is regarded as a role model for others in the department. When she retires at the end of the month, she will have completed 38 years of service to the city of Waynesboro and its citizens. We are grateful that Vicki chose Waynesboro to dedicate her career of service. We wish her and her family only the very best on this occasion of her retirement. Vicki, from the bottom of our hearts, we thank you for your service, and we hope only the best for you and your family. That said, I am going to move to item number 5, which is matters from council. Do any of my fellow council members have something they'd like to share?
Mayor Henderson,
Yes, sir.
I'd just like to follow up on you talking about Vicki Purvis. If all of our employees had the personality that she had, and any time I went in to talk to her about any issues, very helpful, always happy, extremely polite. She served us well for those 38 years. So job well done to her.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Any others? Yes, Dr. Hassan.
So I have my COVID update that I'd like to share. As many of you know, probably looking over Virginia Department of Health numbers are up in the Commonwealth, and they are up in Waynesboro. Our 7-day average is about as high as it's been ever in the last couple of days, higher than it had been in the spring and through the summer. So we are seeing a surge. The rules are still here, and we know that the governor's put in new rules to try to, again, clamp down on the spread. So I hope people are taking them seriously. Again, I'm always encouraged when I'm out and about and I see people in masks and taking precautions. It's going to still be a tough winter and a tough few weeks here. So as we go towards the holiday season, do be safe, and again, continue to be thoughtful of your friends and family and fellow citizens here in Waynesboro. On the vaccine front, there's been lots of good publicity coming out that the vaccine is here, and today in some areas they've started giving them. Those supplies have reached Virginia, I understand. I know that UVA will start giving their frontline workers vaccines starting tomorrow is the plan. I have not heard what the plan at Augusta Health is. They're working through health systems to get them to hospital workers and caregivers. That's going to take some time. I know that they are working to get them out to nursing home residents. And there's plans in the works for how that's going to happen. So if those of you who have family or friends in nursing homes, anticipate that they will be hearing about that. And that will be happening in the next few weeks here. For older Waynesboro residents, folks with other health conditions, that's probably going to be the second wave. I have not seen any definitive answers on how that's going to look yet. So I just encourage people to stay tuned. I'm sure there'll be lots of announcements about how that will start to be distributed once we get through the first wave of healthcare workers and nursing home residents. On a more personal note, I've had lots of conversations with patients asking me if I have confidence that I'm willing to step up and get the vaccine, and the answer is yes. And as a physician, and a physician that tests for COVID, I am on that list in the first wave. And so I have now scheduled my appointment for about 2.5 weeks from now to get my first shot. I think it's important, and I hope as people get the chance and the opportunity that they will take that opportunity. And, if people have questions about it, I'm happy to sort of move them towards the information that I've been seeing and the information that's been shared. But just want to get that out there as a chance that we now can start to put this thing in a corner, I hope. So thank you for your time, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstadter. It's always nice to have a doctor on council with us here. And I would like to remind the citizens, we're not through this yet. wearing masks and washing your hands frequently, like Dr. Hostetter said, is very beneficial to all of us. So thank you. Anyone else have a comment or something they want to share? All right. That brings us to item number 6, which is a presentation of the city's 2020 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Cameron McCormick, the Director of City Finance, and Dustin Didewick and Didewick and Company will do this presentation. So I relinquish the floor, gentlemen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, members of council. I'm pleased to present to you the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for the year ended June 30th, 2020, which we often refer to as just the CAFR. The main goal of the CAFR is to accurately state the financial position of the city through June 30th of 2020. It also helps the city remain in compliance with a number of debt covenants and is required by Virginia State Code to be presented to council as well as submitted to the state. It is worth noting for the current year that there were no changes to any of the governmental accounting principles, so all of the numbers we are reviewing today can be compared to last year's CAFR without any modifications necessary. One thing that is a little bit different that our auditor, Mr. Didewick, will go into a little bit more detail on during his presentation is the auditors have not yet been able to opine on the federal awards received during 2020. This is due to the federal government not yet issuing guidance, the required audit guidance on how to audit the CARES funding that we received back during May. All of the required federal testing has been performed, and once the guidance to audit the CARES funding has been issued, the auditors will audit all funds expended from that account during the year 2020. Neither the auditors nor myself believe this will change anything presented to you all this evening. The issuance of the report without the federal sections at this time is necessary to comply with the state of Virginia requirement to present the CAFR to council and submit it to the state by December 15th of each year. The report provided this evening will satisfy that requirement. That is also the reason that you have only received electronic copies. Hard copies will be provided once the final federal testing has been complete. We will also post a copy of this CAFR on our website until which time the CAFR with the federal sections is available. So, do you guys have any, or do you all have any questions on the procedure for audit this year, or any of the changes, or why the CAFR might look a little bit different? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen for just a second and go through a couple of the key components of the financial section. Is everybody looking at the management discussion and analysis now? So the hope will be I'll walk you all through a couple of the financial sections, talk about the exhibits and relate the notes, and then I will pass it over to Mr. Didewick to talk about the audit opinions and talk about all the audit opinions. So if we start on page 7, this is the management discussion and analysis. This area provides some key metrics of all levels of the government. It helps provide good perspective on the financial situation of the city, as well as some comparisons to the prior year. One chart that I find useful is on page 12, and it is the revenue by source of governmental activities. It's a good visual on how the city is funded from a government-wide level. The next area I'd like to highlight, this is your Exhibit 3. This is a snapshot as of June 30th, 2020 of what you all had in assets, or what the city had in assets, liabilities, deferred inflows, outflows, and fund balance. So this first column is the general fund, and then you have the self-funded health insurance fund, the bond fund, and then some other governmental funds that are combined at this level. So if you go to the next section, at the bottom, this is your total fund balance for the year. So at the end of June 30th, 2020, council had the city had $18,863,821 in fund balance. It's important to note that not all of that is spendable. Some of that has restrictions, commitments, or assignments. So this still reflects your council contingency of $8,268,308. A little bit more detail on the rules for that is located in Note 1, Part D, under the financial policies, and I'll highlight that so that you all can see it when we get to the notes section on the financial statements. The Revenue Stabilization Fund is still intact at $500,000. And once you take all of your restrictions, commitments, and assignments, you end up with $1.4 million in unassigned fund balance at the end of the current fiscal year, or end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2020. So the $1,478,341, that represents the amount that the city has historically set aside to use on capital projects or capital related items during the next year's budget and capital planning process that will start over the next few weeks and come back to you all and have some work sessions on during January with the CIP. Then the next section that I would highlight would be the notes to the financial statements. The first note is the summary of significant accounting policies. That gives the reader an overview of the more important financial policies we have. It gives some perspective on the methods that we account for. And then the one key point that I wanted to, or the one key section that I wanted to point out was it also shows the fund balance policy, which is on page 41 under the financial policies. This is a policy that the council adopted during fiscal year 2020. Basically says that you have to set aside 16% of your next year's budget so 16% of your FY21 budget would have to be set aside in the general fund, and it covers things like cash flow, payroll, so we make sure that you never get in a spot where you have to take out revenue anticipation notes. That policy in its full detail is also available. If anybody would like to see it, this is actually a little bit more than 16%, but the policy as it was written said that it could not go below the amount established on the 2020. So with the COVID-19 pandemic cuts, it would have been a little bit less at just the 16%, but the way the policy is written, it can't go below this amount. So the next section that I would highlight would be, this is your capital assets footnote. This gives you a rundown of your July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020, which is basically all of the large items that we own. So everything over $5,000 with a useful life of greater than 1 year. Split up into a couple different sections. You have the primary government here. So I'll back out a little bit. You have the primary government here, and then you have your business activities here, which are your water and your sewer, stormwater, and refuse. And then you have your school's assets here, which is where all the assets for the school boards, like the physical plant, their supplies and things like that are located. And then the next footnote that I would highlight would be your long-term debt. This is everything that we owe to borrowers. It also pulls in your pension liabilities and your OPEB obligation, OPEB being other post-employment benefits. That's where we allow retirees to stay on our health insurance after the end of their time here, and we supplement that. Compensated absences, but the big thing that it shows is your general obligation bonds, your state literary fund loan, which was paid off during 2020. The next section on this one, it's a little bit different. It combines the governmental activities and the business type activities into one schedule, and then these are just further details of all the bonds. And then you have the schools here, which their main outflow to someone else would be a capital lease that they have, which there's a detail of in the next footnote. So that is the main pieces that I wanted to go over, were the fund balance and just some awareness of the notes and the management discussion and analysis. Does anyone have any questions on the financial pieces? And if not, I will pass it to Mr. Didowick to talk a little bit about procedure and the audit opinions themselves. And Dustin, if you need me to pull the CAFR up at any time, just let me know. that you need me to and what page you would like me to go to, and I would be happy to do that.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council for having us this evening. It's a pleasure to serve the city of Waynesboro in this way, and it's a great pleasure for us to have Cameron presenting the numbers, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. What a great day that is for the city of Waynesboro. First of all, I want to get right to the point. The opinions that we have presented is an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. Unmodified is often called clean, is a clean opinion on the financial statements. We've worked through also, and in relation to internal control opinion, that importantly is not an opinion on internal controls, but rather on how internal controls relate to your audit and what procedures we did to get comfortable with the audit. As Cameron mentioned briefly, what's absent is our opinion on your schedule of expenditure to federal awards. That is absent because we don't have guidance that we need from the federal government to be able to provide that to you. One of the reasons that you'll note that our opinion letters are dated December 11th, as we waited as long as we possibly could to see if we could get that guidance and give you a complete report. But we got to the point last week where we cut it off and said we're just going to have to wait for that guidance when it is available. And I don't have a time frame on that. We were told back in August we would have it in fall of 2020, and today, as of today, we still don't have it. To maintain your compliance with the Virginia's Auditor of Public Accounts, your CAFR does need to be submitted by tomorrow, which it will be timely submitted along with certification from you that it has been presented. So you are meeting your obligation to the state and staying in compliance with the Code of Virginia by us reporting it in this way. We didn't have a choice. And we will be in contact with you once we're able to complete the testing of the federal awards. And as Cameron mentioned, we have tested what we've been able to test. At this moment, we have no findings that I could report to you. So once we are finished with the CARES Act testing, we'll issue you a complete report on the federal awards as well. I do want to point your attention to, and Cameron, I don't think we need to bring it up because I'm not sure anybody wants to read through it, but our opinion letters that I just referenced, the report on the basic financial statements is page 5 and 6 of your CAFR. The in relation to opinion on internal controls is page 159 and 160. The next thing I want to talk about is the schedule of findings and question costs. You'll note that we have one finding, which was that there were material adjustments to get to your audited financial statements. And the 081 indicates that finding has been there since 2008. That's actually been there a little longer than that. That was the first year that standards changed and we had to give it a date. But I am confident in telling you that the quantity of adjustments that were required to get to these numbers is significantly less than it's been in years past. There has been a significant trend in the right direction of your financial statements and your financial data rather being prepared for the CAFR when we arrive, and that is a huge step forward for the city of Waynesboro. The other huge step forward for the city of Waynesboro that you've already noticed and is going to make my presentation significantly shorter for you than it's ever been is that your CAFR was prepared by your finance department. In my relationship with the city of Waynesboro that goes back many years, this is the first, I won't say it's never happened because I can't say that unequivocally, but this is the first time since I've been working with the city that the finance department has had the acumen on staff to prepare that themselves, and that is a great day for the city and really promising for the future. So we have very few clients that can prepare their own financial statements, and it's always a good day for us when we work with someone that has that level of acumen. So I congratulate you for that, and that's a fantastic move forward. I think despite the challenges that we faced auditing during a pandemic, it's been strange to have not been in your buildings much as we normally would be. We've had a lot of Zoom calls, and we've burned up the wires with file transfer sites and things like that. But we have also ultimately gotten to this result, and we've worked hard, and your staff has worked hard, and we greatly appreciate that. I've been through my list of things. I'm happy to speak a little more about any of those, or answer any questions you may have at this time. I'm sorry, I didn't introduce her at the beginning. Katie Gerbil with my firm is also on with us tonight. And Katie and I will, between the two of us, answer any questions you have at this time.
Anyone have any questions for either two of our guests? Apparently you guys done a great job.
Well, thank you. We like to hear that.
Actually, I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. And again, not having had a chance to peruse the entire document yet, do we have the CARES information, our CARES information in this document, and you just aren't able to audit it because you don't know how to audit it yet, or?
Yes, those funds are included in the statements, and I'll let Cameron jump in here too if he wishes. But those amounts are included. There's a separate schedule required to be presented called the Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards that we would then opine specifically on the expenditures of federal awards, which we will do once the required guidance from the Office of Management and Budget's available to us.
Okay. But those numbers are there so we can see where they fit and everything else.
Absolutely. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Sir, we thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
This action, believe it or not, doesn't require any votes. It was just for informational purposes. So with no further questions, we'll move on to item number 7, which is an appropriation ordinance. Item 7 is to consider introducing and adopting an ordinance appropriating $31,992 in grant funds from the Virginia Department of Health to the Water Fund. Mr. Ham.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the city of Waynesboro introduces fluoride into its drinking water system in accordance with recommendation from the Department of Health. The equipment that we use at our water treatment plant failed, and we applied for and received a grant to purchase replacement equipment and install that so that we can resume the introduction of fluoride. So this evening, this is a grant. These are grant revenues, so you will be introducing and adopting in a single consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hamp. We have a motion to introduce and adopt this appropriation ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Dr. Hossetter. Is there any discussion on this? Not seeing or hearing. Let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye. Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. I just added somebody. 5-0. Thank you all very much. The next item on the agenda is to consider reappointment to our Historic Commission. Mr. Hamp?
Yes, sir. The council has presented Dr. Edgar Holloway Jr. For consideration. This is a reappointment. Dr. Holloway was previously appointed in April of 2020 to fill an unexpired term that concluded August 31 of this year. And this is Dr. Holloway is being considered for his first full term.
All right. Thank you. Do we have a motion? Are there any questions for Mr. Hamp? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there a motion to reappoint Dr. Edgar Holloway Jr. for the Historical Commission for a 4-year term expiring August 31st, 2024?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Thank you, Dr. Hossetter. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Show your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? This motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Holloway Jr. for volunteering to be on this committee. The next is item number 9, which is communications, correspondence, and calendar.
Yes, sir. I have 2 items this evening. One is polite reminder that this is the last scheduled regular business meeting for the council in the calendar year. So our next time together will be January 11th of 2021. And then I wanted to just share with the council that we're currently, share with council and the community generally that we're currently advertising for some 30 full-time positions in various disciplines and functions in the city that range from public safety, public works, information technology, and that so if folks have been displaced through the pandemic and the associated economic downturn, I would encourage them to take a look at the city's website and consider whether their particular skill, training, experience matches well with any of the vacancies that we have available. It's always a great thing when folks can find employment in their hometown, and we have a need, and I assume that folks in the community also have a need. I draw your attention and that of the community to that in some cases, these vacancies will impact service delivery. So we have fewer people that are removing snow, fewer people reviewing plans, fewer individuals in the police department responding to calls. And while the folks that are employed currently with us are working diligently to sustain service delivery and promptness and completeness and quality, nonetheless, 30 vacancies represents about 10% of our employee group across all funds, general and enterprise. And while I think to a great extent we can usually mask and overcome that deficiency, there will be instances in which it will be apparent, and we ask for patience and grace from our customers and citizens in that regard. Similarly, we have approximately 20 or so part-time positions in varying functions, and if folks are looking for part-time work, I too would encourage them to examine employment opportunities on our website. And with that information, that's all I have this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Hamp. This brings us to item number 10, which is our citizen comment period. This is a chance for the citizens in our community to come on and tell city council members, your concerns or some recommendations, and allow us time to get back with you with what you share with us. So if you wish to be part of the citizen comment period, we ask that you call 844-844-9200. When you are prompted, enter the meeting code 398145, followed by the pound sign. You will hear Q&A has started. Press the star, followed by the number 6. You will hear, if you would like to speak, press 1. That's a good time to press 1. While you're waiting, you will hear an audio feed of the meeting. When it's your turn to speak, the moderator will come on and tell you to present whatever you want to present to City Council. Do we have anybody on the line, sir?
Not at this time, sir.
Okay. All right, with nobody in for a citizen comment period, do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I was on mute, but I will make that motion.
Thank you, Dr. Hofstetter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Actually, Vice Mayor beat you to that one there, Mr. Allen. Thank you, Lana. And any discussion? I was almost worried nobody wanted to end the meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all.